Thank you, Polly. Good evening. Hello. Welcome to Headliners. I am Simon Evans, and I am in the company tonight of the Headliners A-team. That is Leo Kearse and Nick Dixon, undefeated. So, let's take a look at tomorrow's front pages, and we start with the Daily Mail. They have Suella's 90-minute shouting match with Liz. Obviously, that ended with Suella's departure. Thursday's Daily Telegraph, Braverman exits, rocks government on day of chaos at Westminster. There she is being seen out by an armed guard. Thursday's Independent reads, Braverman out in another day of chaos for Truss. That word keeps cropping up. Thursday's Guardian, Braverman's bombshell puts Truss on the brink. No mention of chaos. Financial Times, Truss team plunged into chaos, there it is, by exit of Braverman. Nestle and P&G squeezed as consumers cut spending and resist price increases. We suck the tea out of a wet rag. Thursday's Sun reads, broken. Simple as that. And a photograph, I assume, taken through a car window rather than some sort of top-of-the-pops filter. That is Liz Truss. Doesn't even look like it, does it? She really is broken. Thursday's Daily Star has, of course, the lettuce, which is still head-to-head. Which one will survive? Lettuce Liz is cut to shreds. Those were your front pages. Let's see what's inside. So, unanimous pretty much, but we'll start with Thursday's Telegraph and chaos in the government, Nick.
Yep, Suella Braverman quits / is pushed out, and the official reason is there was an email that was official, but it was sent from a private account, but nobody believes this is the real reason, as Dominic Cummings has already tweeted. It's either the blob in the part of the blob coup, or it's differences with Liz Truss, or both at this point, because obviously Suella had differed with Liz Truss over things like immigration, and she was quite vocal about that. But of course, we've got this blob takeover with Hunt, and Suella Braverman put in this resignation letter that was a kind of masterpiece of passive aggression. It was really all aimed at Liz Truss, one felt. She said, pretending we haven't made mistakes, carrying on as if everyone can't see we have made them, and hoping that things will magically come right is not serious politics. I have made a mistake. I accept responsibility. I resign. It was almost like an instruction manual for what Truss should do.
See how to do it,
Yeah, good use of a semicolons there, and so that's where we're at with that.
Do you don't think the mistake she made refers to that email that she sent from her phone? Because, as you say, that is, the Dominic Cummings tweet, but others have made clear that's an everyday occurrence, right?
It's you sort of like, are we still talking about the email, Suella? She's saying it's the email mistake, but is she really saying that? She's broadening the picture. And she also made reference to manifesto promises that they've broken. And she's saying, look, can we really carry on like this? So she's just sort of holding the line, saying we were elected on certain things, including reducing immigration. You completely abandon all that, and it's a mess, and, you're a disaster.
It
Goodbye.
seems to me, if she has been pushed out by Truss, that's incredibly bad timing, because it simply adds to the sense that the whole thing is chaotic, as every single paper has said. But if it wasn't that, then I don't quite understand why...
Well, and it's weird for them to be disagreeing this soon into her appointment as Home Secretary. But they do fundamentally disagree on immigration. It might be that Truss has had to say, like, look, we're going to need a lot more immigration to kickstart the economy, because she's not allowed to pursue this low-tax, high-growth plan for Britain. So they're going to have to increase the economy somehow.
The number of people that they can tax.
Basically, voters will have no option for a party that will have sustainable, lower immigration, because the Tories are going to have high immigration because it provides a sort of shot in the arm, sort of steroids for the economy. Even though it's got long-term side effects, it provides that instant growth. And Labour want it because a lot of immigrants will vote Labour. So either way, you're getting a lot of immigration. But what this means for democracy, this is like a coup. This is like something you'd see in a banana republic. And in 2019, people voted for Boris, and they voted for this vision of Britain with getting Brexit done and all the rest of it. And now they've been sort of replaced by this anti-Brexit. Jeremy Hunt is now de facto.
Can I just add? And I forgot to add. And Grant Shapps, of course, is replacing Suella, another Remainer blob type.
And a technocrat, as
globalist.
You was just saying. Tom Slater was
and
just saying.
And a borderline con man as well.
Well, he is absolutely, he's disreputable, isn't he? He's got that Anthea Turner feminist sort of vibe about him, doesn't he? But I also think, I mean, what we're seeing here is another manifestation of the same problem that's been at play since Brexit. Maybe it was brought into the light more by Brexit. Maybe it's been there for a very long time, which is that Parliament is detached from almost every other metric of opinion in the country. When you have Brexit, you had a majority for Brexit, a huge majority for Remain within Parliament, in every party, in Labour and in the Tories, and obviously in the SNP. Huge majority for Remain.
Smart people who know how government works were against it.
Exactly. It does seem that way. And now you have another coup. So that was the first coup. They tried to stop Brexit happening. Now you have another one because there is a disconnect between the membership of the Tory party and the parliamentary Tory party. The parliamentary Tory party obviously wanted Sunak. They were only really even engaging with the possibility of Truss in a sort of gesture towards...
Well, you've probably seen William Hague was saying we shouldn't go to the members when we're picking our new leader.
No.
Tobias Ellwood agreed. One Tory MP anonymously even said we should only let the members choose when we're in opposition, when it doesn't matter. Which is saying the quiet part out loud. So, there's that huge divide between the members and party.
But it does seem dysfunctional that they let the members decide and then release them back into it. It's like, go back into that dressing room. Well, if they're not on side, they're not on side.
Yeah, and it's the same thing that happened with the Labour Party, with Corbyn. You know, letting members select. They're going to select somebody who's maybe a bit too extreme for the rest of the MPs, somebody who's not electable in the same way as the MPs would choose.
Well, but then again, they were pro-Boris, and Boris is very electable. And is Truss really that extreme?
But I've said, Boris, he was exceptional, and they underestimated the extent to which he was an exception, and it was holding the whole... You know, he was an extremely powerful hub bolt, a nut and bolt, holding that
he didn't seem like it at the time.
He didn't. And who would have said 5 months ago, well, you know, if you get Boris out of government, there'll be chaos. You would have gone, to be ridiculous. He's causing the chaos. But it's exactly like Saddam in Iraq in 2003. We will get Saddam out. He's causing all the trouble. No, turns out he's not.
Are we going to find Boris with a big beard in a sort of underground...
sheltering under a bit of corrugated iron? It's absolutely hilarious. Anyway, it's the only thing you can do. Thursday's Independent. There is more to the fracking vote as well than meets the eye, Liam.
Yeah, so what we've just discussed isn't the only chaos for the Tories. I mean, it's amazing. You know, it always seems to come in about 12s for this government. So the Chief Whip and the Deputy Chief Whip have apparently resigned from the Truss government following a contentious vote on fracking. So several Conservative MPs had said they're going to revolt against the government and vote against the Tories, and they were told, the whip told them it was a vote of confidence which could result in expulsion from the party for rebels. Because obviously, you know, right now this is when you need to sort of rally round the party and not make even more cracks appear. But following that, it appears the whips may have been a bit too boisterous. There have been reports of Tory MPs being shouted at and even physically manhandled into the lobby by ministers. Or describing it, I think, who was it? Chris Bryan, Labour MP, described it as bullying. That's an adult. Describing adults shouting at other adults as bullying.
The point of whips aren't bullies. I mean, that's why it's called whips, isn't it? Otherwise, it would be called carrots or something, wouldn't it?
The word bully is hate speech. It's a hate speech word used by losers to describe people who are better and stronger than them. And we need to stop it.
Leo's
Nietzschean.
Pro-bully rhetoric from Leo, surprising no one. Well, yeah, there was chaos. It's hard to know exactly what happened. Apparently, Graham Stewart was told by Number 10 to announce that the three-line whip was suspended, but no one told Wendy Morton, this is what I've heard, and so she instantly quit. And apparently was heard shouting in the corridor, I'm no longer the chief whip, was shouting it in a corridor.
Like they've gone slightly hysterical.
Yes,
I think she may have withdrawn her resignation now. I think that might have been on the news report.
OK, we've moved so fast, hasn't it? We might have a new PM by halfway through the show.
And I'm sure some of the newspapers will come out with things that are dead wrong tomorrow.
You
know, definitely will happen.
I get the feeling that, like, serving this cabinet is sort of like jury duty. We're all going to have...
Well, that's the question. How long will Liz Truss last? Because, you know, some people think she's trying to beat George Canning's record, and he did either 118 or 119 days. People seem to disagree, but it ended because he died. And she's in danger of becoming the shortest-lived PM, not because she died, but because of all this chaos. And I think she's on about 43 days now.
Wow.
And I heard another interesting theory that they're going to keep Truss in just to absorb the shock as a sort of human shield. Because who could you put in now and they'll take all this flack?
Well, that's what they should have done with Boris, to be honest, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, admittedly, there were cries for Boris's resignation, but they could have weathered them if they'd done it, and they could have just used it to absorb everything else that happened.
But if you think, why would Truss sit through all this?
Yeah.
But if that theory is correct, it kind of suits both parties. They get to keep her there as a human shield. She gets to not have the world record for worst ever Prime Minister.
Oh, they don't care. An extra day as Prime Minister, that's what he just wants to be in gold paint on the wooden panel over the door. I've just heard through my ear, by the way, they definitely have withdrawn their resignation, I think. So, well, I say definitely, by this time tomorrow. Thursday's Times, and it looks like our money is burning in our pockets, Nick.
Yep, so UK inflation climbs to higher than expected. 10.1% from 9.9% in August. That's the September figure compared to August. So that's a problem even in Bidenomics, where you go month to month. And they're blaming increases in food prices. And, of course, it's going to add pressure to the Bank of England to raise interest rates, perhaps to 3.25%, perhaps to 3%.
Yeah.
And there's debate on what that's going to be exactly. And, obviously, that's not great because that's what lenders were already concerned about when they withdrew all those mortgages. And there's this question, of course, of the triple lock pension. So this was going to be a bit of an open goal for Labour if the Tories said we're not going to keep it in the state pension in line with inflation. But now they pretty much have said, apparently Truss has said that she will do that because otherwise it's just sort of bad PR for them. Yeah. So they have to keep raising the
well, they are in hock.
Triple lock's a manifesto commitment.
Yeah, and it is also the demographic that vote for them most reliably, isn't it? You know, and there's no escaping that. They are absolutely chained to the eldest third of the country, which is huge now. It's like they're just such a massive voting bloc,
and it's really skewing policy. So you can see, there's high tax on income for workers, but relatively lower taxes on
and all kinds of
wealth.
Policies that make it harder to get on the housing ladder. I mean, there are kids like 25, 30 even now who they're no nearer owning a home than they were when they left.
30, like 50, mate.
Yeah. And it's really making them unpopular. I mean, it's very short-sighted, I think, because ultimately these people are there's going to be a socialist revolution. It's going to be, there's going to be a huge creaking and then a collapse of any kind of conservative sentiment under the age of 65.
Yeah, we could see the steps towards it with Corbyn.
Yeah.
So, I mean, next time Corbyn could succeed. But a lot of this food inflation, I think, it isn't just down to food prices going up or supply chain costs going up. The wheat price is actually pretty low. It's come down because Ukraine's allowed to export wheat again. The oil prices come down quite a bit, so transport costs aren't huge. But companies like Heinz are gouging consumers. They've seen an opportunity to jack up their prices. Nobody ever lets a crisis go to waste. So they've jacked up the prices. Tesco actually went to war with Heinz to say we're not going to sell your ketchup at these prices, but they know that people will pay an extra quid or two for the ketchup.
Because they'll blame the war and the supply side problems.
Exactly,
I had a big row about who made the best baked beans about a year ago on Twitter, and I think Cross and Blackwell came out ahead, so this could be their opportunity. Well, I guess that was one of the stories. I think it was on the front cover of the FT, wasn't it, about Nestle and Procter & Gamble are squeezed as consumers cut spending and resist price increases. I assume they're basically switching to supermarket-owned brands.
Yeah.
I mean, I've always felt, I'll be honest with you, my favourite brands are whichever supermarket I'm shopping in, their premium brand. I prefer that to you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Tesco Finest or Sainsbury's Taste the Difference. That's the sweet spot for me.
Ooh la la.
That's a little bit better than
He's on the presenter salad.
I know.
The finest.
I kind of prefer that to Heinz, which is everyone just has Heinz. Co-op is irresistible. There's Lidl, which is perfectly edible. I think it's
Well, I used to I used to be sort of pro Aldi, but apparently they're selling insects now, so they're part of the WEF's scheme. You will eat the bugs in Aldi, and you will be happy.
Now, the Independent, and it looks like government aren't communicating with each other or the Bank of England.
Yeah, so we sort of knew this already from 2 weeks ago when the budget was launched, but Kwasi Kwarteng failed to brief the Bank of England about the risks from the mini-budget, MPs have been told. So the Bank of England was not briefed properly about Kwasi Kwarteng's disastrous mini-budget that caused the turmoil in the bond market and forced the Bank of England to launch a $65 billion rescue of pension funds.
Yeah, it wasn't as much as $65 billion.
Yeah.
Easy.
£66 billion. But yeah, obviously, so the Sir John Cunliffe, who's the somebody in the Bank of
Deputy Governor.
Deputy Governor. So he says, obviously, if they'd come to us and said, this is what we're planning to do, they would have given expert feedback on how it could have affected the bond market. Yeah. Whoa. And he's also revealed that the leap in government borrowing costs triggered by the spooking of financial markets was unprecedented, calling it outside of historical experience. So it's costing the bond yield going up is costing the government a lot of money. So even by reversing all the cuts, we're still all they've done is come in, make a huge mess that's going to cost us loads of money, and then
they would have been better
again.
off just letting the huge mess carry on as it was. Actually, to be honest, all we have now is like bathwater sloshing around everywhere. It's not like it's calmed anything down, has it? It's just made it, it remains unstable.
I see what you mean, and Leo's right. We're not surprised by this, but the budget itself wasn't that radical. It was the communication which this confirms, lack of. And you wonder what was Kwarteng up to. Dominic Cummings describes him as having probably the highest IQ in Parliament, but being the laziest MP. So his theory is just pure laziness. He did seem to be a bit cavalier, or was it just lack of experience? Because they've given the opposition and the Blob a total open goal here. And the only positive I've found from all of this chaos is that Starmer will have to work with President Trump, and that's that'll be such bants. That's the only positive I've found.
And the annoying thing is, so Jeremy Hunt's coming in to have £40 billion worth of spending cuts, which is going to basically just save money for Keir Starmer to spend, which is kind of annoying.
Do you agree with this theory that actually this is a sort of own goal for Labour because they've now proved that you can't just borrow endlessly, and that it rules out a future magic money tree for Labour, and it's actually confirmed that fiscal sort of austerity or conservatism is the only way you can go. Do you buy into that theory?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I don't think people talk about austerity as if we're just being given a handful of lentils. It's like, no, austerity is just common sense. And how can it be called austerity when we've still got equality, diversity and inclusion departments wasting everybody's money? There's so much waste in the public sector.
Well, austerity I think it has changed its meaning, hasn't it? And it is now seen to mean a reduction in the public sector rather than like rationing or like people just actually being poor themselves.
Yeah.
It seems to mean just thinning out departments that have mushroomed in the previous 15 years.
They do claim it has cost lives, so I don't want to be too cavalier about austerity. They do claim that, any cuts to services...
That was debunked pretty thoroughly. I mean, I'm sure one or two lives cost whatever you do when you raise the speed limit or lower the speed limit or anything, somebody dies. But they were like 12,000, all that, when there was that fuss about ADOS who were fit to work and all that stuff. It was investigated and it really didn't match up.
Well,
Snowden's
well, lockdown cost a lot of lives. No one seemed to care in that case. So,
absolutely. Moving away from the chaos in Westminster now, The Sun brings us a story about Russia. And Russians declaring martial law in its occupied zones.
Yeah, I like the way you sold that, as if it was some good news for once, but it's actually incredibly bad.
Back to the wheat fields.
Yeah, it's very, very bad. This is in The Sun. Mad Vlad declares martial law in occupied Ukraine. And so Putin has declared martial law in Donetsk, Luhansk, however you say that, Kherson and Zaropizhzhia. How do you say it?
Zarathustra.
Yes. Zaropizhzhia or something. So I'm never great on the pronunciations, I apologise. But it's very, very bad. He's declaring martial law in those areas. And also there are rumours of him detonating an atomic bomb, perhaps over the Black Sea. He's plotting to do this.
Over the Black Sea?
That's what I've heard. Well, there's different...
kill some caviar.
There's different locations,
it's going to be the Blacker Sea.
A display of might, and things like this. And, of course, he's also got this guy, Sergei Surovikin, however you say it, and his name is General Armageddon. Now, you're asking for trouble when you hire that guy. Do you know what I mean? I'm a layman, but if he's already called General Armageddon, it's not clear to me if that's his rank or if it just means widespread Armageddon. But
he previously he's a sort of butcher general who I think led the troops in Syria and also possibly in the east of Ukraine before, and is sort of notorious for his horrible, brutal methods. But this economic mobilisation, it's a sort of creep towards, full-blown fascism because it allows the economic mobilisation of all businesses. So private sector businesses will be co-opted into total war. Everything goes into the war effort, and it's a sort of sign of what could be coming for Russia if Putin doesn't step back from the brink. But the nuclear weapons thing, there's not been any signs of any nuclear warheads being moved because they've got to move them by train or truck or whatever to the missiles. And given the state of the rest of Russia's hardware, I'm not totally sure they could actually, get one to blow up successfully.
They cannot be completely sure.
Although we wouldn't necessarily want to gamble it. Although it was serious enough that Ben Wallace rushed off to the US, and it has to be quite serious when you're forced to meet Joe Biden. You know what I mean? So he obviously thought it was somewhat serious.
Would nuclear subs be a part of this calculation, do you think?
I mean, they could fire one from a nuclear sub.
We don't know where their subs are, I guess, like anybody else.
We've got Trident, there's Vanguard and all this sort of stuff. So, I mean, they've already used subs to break the pipes.
Yeah, and how many? We're allowed 5 subs, aren't you, in the war now? Is that right?
Something like that.
Something like that,
sure.
yeah. Coming up after the break, why Sweden is changing its attitudes, why the Europeans fear English football teams, and whether we should stick with daylight saving time or ditch it. That's all in a couple of minutes. See you shortly.
Weekday afternoons on GB News, we've got the whole of the UK covered. From 12 to 3, it's GB News Day with me, Mark Longhurst.
And me, Gloria Di Piero. You'll get the very latest on everything that's been going on across our great nation.
And from 3 till 6, watch out for GB News Live with me, Patrick Christys. I'm not here to mess around. With all the biggest topics and guests, you will always be up to date. GB News Day and GB News Live from 12 p.m.
Only on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello there, it's Eamon Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and tune-in apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch.
You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh, my goodness me. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
Hello, I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m, where I'll be joined by 2 of the country's top comedians as we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight. If it's a big story, we'll be covering it, I guarantee, but we'll also have some fun along the way. That's GB News Headliners at 11 p.m. We won't put you to sleep, unlike some of the other paper review shows out there. So join us, 11 p.m, 7 nights a week. Welcome back to Headliners. I am Simon Evans. Our sporting comedians on the pitch tonight are Leo Kearse and Nick Dixon. So, Thursday's Times, we stay with Russia, and activists now face criminal punishment, Leo.
Yeah, so Russia is going to make LGBT advocacy a criminal offence. So Russia's to step up its repression of homosexuality will make LGBT propaganda, air quotes obviously, because that's Russia's words, not the West's, a criminal offence with heavy fines for anyone who promotes what it calls non-traditional relationships. So the laws will impose these fines on anyone advocating gay relationships or discussing homosexuality without condemning it. So, they're not going to like Netflix.
This is all the way back to Margaret Thatcher in the 1980s. It's every bit as fascist as she was.
Section 20.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, this is, I mean, it plays into the whole Russia versus West thing because they paint the West as this cesspool of sexual decadence and degeneracy where
drag queen story hour.
Drag queens are in schools, children marry horses and all this kind of stuff. And I mean, to be fair, they've got a point. But I mean, there is gay porn in school libraries. There is child drag queens and child transitioning is a mania that's sweeping across the West. So I mean, there is. We are helping Putin with his propaganda in certain respects, but obviously this is horrific. We've seen people like Right Said Fred protesting in Moscow and getting arrested over there for gay rights. Rights that would be considered
and they were
absolutely
his
normal
during Brexit, weren't they?
Yeah, Right Said Fred are always on the right side of history.
Yeah,
it's amazing. But yeah, so the stuff that we since about the 70s or 80s we've considered normal here is still seen as you know, it's quite a homophobic society.
I mean, he has. You're right. He has obviously. Putin has identified it as a useful fault line and a useful totem around which he can gather his people and say that, you know, I'm protecting you from this. But do you think in the modern era with social media and everything, they're capable of?
Well, likely I disavow this, but I agree with the point that, yes, it's an open goal for Putin. Some of the excesses of the West are an open goal for his rhetoric. We've seen his speeches where people end up going, oh, I actually agree with him. And, you know, and he's able to convince people by, well, on the one hand, talking about imperialism, which appeals to the left, on the other hand, talking about social decadence, which appeals to the right. And that's another example of this. I will add one thing. That, this also, though, includes, or they're extending it to, a patriotic education programme. And my problem with this is, I mean, I've got quite a few problems with Russia, but this is one problem, is that this would potentially ban things like Dostoevsky, because there'd be things in there that were not sufficiently spiritual and educational for the youth and, you know, sort of authoritarian sounding enough.
Which, ironically, is exactly what the West would do.
Yeah, what ban Dostoevsky?
Yeah, ban authors.
We'd put little warnings on, trigger warnings on them. But yeah, and if you're banning Dostoevsky, you've jumped the shark because he's one of the great writers of all time.
Although Nabokov didn't include him in the list of great Russian writers.
Nabokov was a snotty formalist, and if you read things like Pale Fire, they're okay. It's like, okay, you've done the story and the footnotes, and the main story is a poem. Very clever, Nabokov. But is it as good as Crime and Punishment? Is it as good as Notes from Underground or The Idiot? I asked the question.
He wasn't competing with himself. He had people like Gogol and Tolstoy, obviously, and who was the great poet?
Pushkin.
Pushkin, yeah. But at this point, my understanding and knowledge runs a bit dry. I just remember him being particularly harsh about Dostoevsky. He called him a fraud, I think.
Well, you know, there's an attack on people like Dostoevsky because they didn't have the greatest style. But you know,
Can I just interrupt you two nerds to discuss some news?
Sorry about that. Yeah, it's my expert topic.
And reacting to the current global situation, Sweden is changing the style of its foreign policy. Nick.
Yep, Sweden abandons feminist foreign policy. That's their quote, not mine. And this is just, it's not much of a story. There's been a move to the right because they've got this right-wing coalition in there now, whereas in the past 8 years, they've had these centre-left governments that have said things like, oh, we need to talk about gender equality and things, whereas the new lot are basically saying, no, we want to promote nationalism, Sweden's interests, rather than feminism. But no one is actually clear yet what it will actually mean in practice.
Well, Matt, what it sounds like it means is they will have more functional relationships with Iran. I mean, that's surely the subtext, isn't it? For a feminist foreign policy, who else would come into the crosshairs? I
didn't pick up on that. Basically, a lot of policy in Sweden has been developed with empathy, and empathy is a terrible affliction that mainly women suffer from.
Death to foreign policy.
Yeah, so they're going to put Sweden first. I mean, there have been reports in Sweden, because they've had this mass migration, which comes from this sort of feminist idea of we must help everyone. It's like you can't help
Ironically,
everyone.
that's brought in the right wing who have ended the feminist foreign policy.
Exactly, and are now trying to deport people who came as asylum seekers. But there's also been reports of men standing by while women are attacked on the street by immigrants because they say, well, you wanted these policies, you wanted these people to be, the gates to be open and all these people here. So they've
actually sort of isolated them into quite specific ghettos, essentially, haven't they? I think it's sort of Afghani ghettos where there are hand grenades being thrown around and this.
It's called multiculturalism.
Yeah,
and,
I don't know that it is. I think there's
a
single culture which is sort of become decisively the main flavour of. Is it Malmo? I think, isn't it?
Right.
I don't know.
Disavow.
I get all my news from Trump's
Trump's Telegram.
Why would you need to go anywhere else?
Exactly.
Leo's making it sound like a sort of Muscat, make Sweden great again. It doesn't really work, does it?
Thursday's Guardian. Trump, I've summoned him up. Trump admitting details about the most unlikely bromance in history, Leo.
Yeah, so Trump is basically there's an investigation into secrets that Trump took from the White House, and you're not allowed to take your.
These are the ones they broke into his hotel safe
in Mar-a-Lago, and they seized them. So there's letters between him and Kim Jong-un, the leader of North Korea, which I'd love to read. I wonder what what amazing.
Well, their banter, even their banter for public consumption, was top grade, wasn't it? Remember Rocket Man?
And like my button's bigger than yours, and stuff like that. Amazing.
Who knows where they went in private?
But after that, they became friends. of, they certainly corresponded. And
Dennis Rodman would be the broker, wouldn't he, in that one? Bizarre.
That's what this administration is missing.
Yeah.
Dennis Rodman. But yeah, so anyway, Trump has said, I didn't know these things were top secret. Just because they had top secret written on them, I didn't, I thought that was just for show. But he admitted in 2019 in an interview that he said this, he shared the letters with this guy who was interviewing him, and he said, nobody else has them, but I want you to treat them with respect, and don't say I gave them to you, okay? And he said, oh, these are so top secret.
Yeah.
I miss him. I miss him so much.
But just to defend Trump on that point, I thought Trump's claim, now the actual legalities are very complicated, but I thought his broad claim was that I thought his broad claim was that he had the power to declassify them, not that they were never classified. He's been saying, I'm the president, I can declassify anything. So he'll probably just say that this is fine. They were classified then, I declassified them.
It does feel like they're going after him for anything. Like if he puts the recycling in the wrong box, they're coming down him for.
That is, I mean, it could be trivial, but I'd like to see what's in the letters before we decide whether or not.
Well, apparently they exchange birthday greetings and best wishes and things like this. Now the papers are some people on tweet, some people on that's a good one. Some people on Twitter are saying things like, "Oh, he's infatuated with strong leaders and things." No, he understands you have to flatter their egos because he's worked with celebrities and he knows how it works. Yeah. And people are so stupid, like, "Oh, he loves Putin." No, he's flattering him. Trump's actually good at diplomacy in a weird way. Notice we had peace with North Korea for all their criticism. And one more thing,
the nuclear escalations under the Trump presidency.
Obama was talking about war with North Korea. Now he's mates with him. Yeah. Now Trump he remarked to Bob Woodward, this journalist, that we have stuff that Putin and Xi have never heard about before, and he's bragging about weapons, and people are saying this is mad that he's saying it. No, he's leaking the idea to Russia that, by the way, we have crazy weapons that can just dissolve you that you've never seen before. I think it's smart.
Very probably playing Bob Woodward as well. Quite carefully.
He's playing them all. 4D chess.
Genius. Absolute genius. Huge loss, but God willing, 2024. Football news now, and it looks like the Europeans want to stop our dominance of the beautiful game, Nick.
Yeah, European Super League set to be revived to halt English dominance. So there was this idea mooted a while ago of the Super League. Everyone hated it. The clubs had to climb down. They had to all apologise because the football people, the general fan, just said this is absolutely disgusting. And now...
And you are an example of one of those. You're a Man United fan, right? They were one of the top
They
six,
were one
right?
of them, and it was disgusting.
So what exactly disgusted you? The abandonment of all the slightly lower tier clubs? Or the expectation that you would fly overseas to see them match?
Well, there was also the lack of competition. It was like a league that you couldn't even be relegated from. It was kind of a weird exhibition league. And what Europe have got annoyed about is that we're too good, and now they want to rig it themselves in this kind of European protectionist racket thing. A bit like the EU, but for football. It's the EU of football.
The numbers
are
incredible, because I did read this story. I don't follow football that closely. Like, I'd only heard of Haaland for the first time last Sunday.
Oh, you're lucky.
Yeah.
He's too good.
But too good. Apparently there's a petition out there he's got to be banned because he's too good. But anyway, the point is the expenditure is extraordinary, right?
Yeah, around $2 billion more we spend than all the top European clubs leagues combined.
Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah.
Even Nottingham Forest coming up this year, into the Premier League, spent more than...
Yeah, €160 more than the whole of Serie A, La Liga, Bundesliga and League One combined,
Amazing.
Yeah. And so they're saying, well, we've got dodgy funding and hedge funds and sheikhs and oligarchs. And there is something in that. It's because we've done so well.
They can have sheikhs.
Yes. So they can't compete properly, so they want to have their little rigged Super League, and everyone's going to hate the idea.
And would the teams that play in the Super League not play in the Premiership?
Well, that's a good question. That was one of the questions that was raised. I mean, every Premier League club that talked about the Super League said if they went back into it, they'd incur a 30-point deduction immediately. So it'd be very hard for an English club to go into it now, unless all of them went into it together, which wouldn't happen. So, but Europe sounds like they want to just do it on their own. It's a bad idea. I don't know how it's going to work.
It is odd, isn't it, that, I think most English fans have recognised that the English game of the Premier League, the top tier, has been it's basically been bought wholesale by huge overseas international finance, whether you say it's oil or gas or something like sovereign wealth funds and stuff are owning club sides now, aren't they? Why has this happened in the UK and not to Paris Saint-Germain or to,
I
I don't know,
bigger.
AC Milan. I mean, these were big sides, weren't they?
It's bigger business here. I think
guess.
it's just that much bigger. And
Yeah.
also it's got more prestige and more status. It's global as well.
Through Sky, presumably,
I
right?
noticed when you go to Southeast Asia, you see, if you go
Yeah.
to Thailand, you see the Leicester City.
Really? Yeah.
Literally a shop in the airport for Leicester City
Yeah.
strips and stuff. And you see the Premiership strip on anywhere you go in the world, you see Premiership strips.
It feels to me like, I don't know what it would be, but it feels to me like there may be a lesson we could learn there that we could roll out across the rest of the British economy. Do you know what I mean? It's like, what is it that we're doing so well there
We need more
without
sheiks.
trying? Maybe we need less government because, I mean, there hasn't really been much government involvement in that at all.
We need the NHS to be run by Saudi wealth funds.
Yeah,
Well, but
that's exactly what we
But
need.
initially, yeah, it might be oligarchs now, but you get there, don't you, through fierce competition. You get there through the ultimate free market, the ultimate meritocracy.
Yeah.
Who's the best at football
Yeah.
from whatever walk of
Well,
life?
not who's the best at football, because we buy those in as well, right? It's not.
Yeah,
if it
but-
was all British players, then that really would be bizarre. But the point is that they can then they buy Man City and then they buy the best from Norway to South America.
You're right, that's gone a bit pro-immigration for me, that argument, so I'm
Yeah,
taking
yeah.
it back. I've changed my mind.
Anyway, something can be learned from it, surely. The Guardian now is giving us the story that comes around every October. It is about the changing of the clocks, Leo, but it's got a bit of a twist this year.
Yeah, this time, so an expert is saying we should save energy by not turning the clocks back in October. So normally, we put the
Doesn't
clocks
take that much energy, does
forward
it?
in
Sometimes
spring.
you have to climb up on a chair to reach the clock, but apart from
Boom,
that...
boom. So if we don't put the clocks back, we get an extra hour. We don't actually get an extra hour of daylight. It's just, the time changes. You could just get up an hour earlier, but, whatever. But, yeah, basically this person is saying that households could save more than £400 a year on energy bills if clocks are not put back at the end of October. So that would help people with the cost of living crisis and would also reduce pressure on the national grid this winter, because we're seeing the possibility, depending on how cold the winter is, there could be blackouts, there could be rationing of power, and obviously this would any power we don't use helps the fight against Russia, helps Ukraine, and is a punch in the face for Putin. So I think it's a no-brainer. I mean, it's complicated to put the clocks forward and back twice a year. I don't know why we have to do it.
Y2K twice a year, isn't it?
Yeah, why would we do it? It's only there's some farmers that benefit from the extra hour of daylight in the morning.
I think even that's been debunked now.
But they can just get up when they want.
I know.
You can get up. If you normally get up at 5 a.m, you can get up at 4 a.m. if you want. And
I've got an even better idea. Why don't they remove an entire hour from the middle of the day, say about 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and put it into the middle of the night when everyone's in bed with everything switched off?
That's
removed anyway at a certain age due to napping. But to answer Leo, though, it's not a no-brainer. It's a brainer because people are still debating it constantly, and no one can decide. Now, this idea of saving energy is not new. It came about in 1916 because of Kaiser Wilhelm II in Germany. He wanted fast time. He called it fast time, and he invented the putting the hour forward. We didn't invent it, but he implemented it, and we copied him in the war. So we were trying to. It was about saving fuel and so on. And
I guess we turn up to the fight, turn up to the battle at the right time.
at the right time. And the other thing was, in France, they did it because of there's another weird German influence on it. They did it because of German occupation in the Second World War. They had to move it forward to German summertime. Then they went back to sort of French summertime afterwards, after the Germans had gone again. But in 1945, they thought about coming all the way back to GMT, but that didn't happen. Then they went forward again in 1976 because of the oil crisis. So again, it was due to energy. So again, it's not a new idea, but it's controversial. The reason I'm sort of semi-against it is because of all these German influences.
Yeah.
But I do like the idea, because I stay up late and this job is late, I do like the idea of the daylight being later.
Yeah.
But one thing I can agree on, whichever one we go with, can we just stop changing it? Can we pick the GMT or the +1?
Well, apart from that, I mean, your sort of sense of irritability about it, it causes accidents, doesn't it? Again, you say people do die, though. There usually are a few people getting run over outside schools and things, and people's reaction times are bad because they've missed an hour's sleep and that kind of stuff.
It kills more people than austerity. And also, it was actually developed, this whole daylight savings time, it was implemented in the UK by Coldplay, Chris Martin out of Coldplay's great-grandfather.
Oh, I thought you were just trying to create hate speech.
It was suggested by him in 1907. It didn't come until 1916.
Right.
Well, it's only the second
one of their
thing
biggest hits was
responsible
called Clocks, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Do you think that was in honour of
I think it was,
probably.
probably,
Probably was, yeah. Coldplay as well.
But I remember my grandma phoning me up being like, don't forget clocks go forwards tonight. And I was like, clocks go forwards every night. Nice. Same time works.
When you stop them. Go. I seem to have encountered the wrong little bit there. Hang on a second. We have, coming back shortly after the break, we have why sleep is good for you, why surviving the Black Death causes problems for your descendants, on why some people are just mosquito magnets. I think I know one of those. I'll see you in a couple of minutes.
Weekday afternoons on GB News, we've got the whole of the UK covered. From 12 to 3, it's GB News Day with me, Mark Longhurst.
And me, Gloria Di Piero. You'll get the very latest on everything that's been going on across our great nation.
And from 3 till 6, watch out for GB News Live with me, Patrick Christie. I'm not here to mess around. With all the biggest topics and guests, you will always be up to date. GB News Day and GB News Live from 12 p.m.
Only on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello there, it's Eamon Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and TuneIn apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch.
You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh my goodness me. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
Hello, I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m, where I'll be joined by two of the country's top comedians as we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight. If it's a big story, we'll be covering it, I guarantee, but we'll also have some fun along the way. That's GB News Headliners at 11 p.m. We won't put you to sleep, unlike some of the other paper review shows out there. So join us, 11 p.m, 7 nights a week. Welcome back to Headliners. I'm Simon Evans. This is the final straight now before the finish line, and with me are comedians Leo Kearse and Nick Dixon. So, Thursday's Express and the Welsh hospitality really shines through sometimes. But not this time, Nick.
Not this time. Pub owners on edge as menacing anti-English graffiti sprayed on wall. This was in Llandalo in Wales, and the message read, "Leave English or die." It sounded like they left the English language, because leave English, should be leave, comma, English or die. Leave English... Well, maybe those dividers there we can see were the commas in effect, actually. But, yes, and so this is a strange strange, it's quite common now, isn't it? Basically, everyone hates England now. If you're Scotland, if you're Wales, very cool to hate England and be a nationalist. The only nationalist you're not allowed to be, of course, is English. But everyone else, it's great if you're a nationalist. So this is just more of that kind of...
Do you feel there's any possibility that it's a false flag?
Oh,
some people do these sort of things, do they sometimes to themselves.
What would be the aim?
This is the Jussie Smollett of Welsh
Yes,
pub
exactly.
owners.
Get a little bit of extra business, sell a few more pies to guilty Welsh people.
We see a lot of this in Scotland. There's even organisations like Settler Watch that keep an eye out for English. And it's
Settler.
Settler Watch is discussing. Obviously, I grew up in Scotland with English parents, so you know, I got it in the neck. And it shows the failure of devolution. Because devolution has created these satellite parliaments in Scotland and Wales and, you know, to a lesser extent in Northern Ireland that foment just antipathy towards Westminster and towards the English.
It was so psychologically naive, I thought. I mean, well-intentioned, but, you know, the idea that this would just let a bit of steam out.
Never let anybody have any steam out. Everybody's got to keep that. Just push it down. Push it down. That's the only safe way.
And what's really weird is the English are the best. You know what I mean? So they're saying we're the worst. We're actually the best. It's the complete opposite.
Well, I think that's a lie.
Isn't your dad English?
But ethnically he's half Scottish.
Anglo.
But like whatever. I've got a Scottish accent.
If you go away from the UK, the Scottish and the English influence in America or whatever it's all considered to be Anglo anyway.
Yeah.
They don't make any distinction between that, and probably even the Welsh. I don't know.
It's just a different accent.
Yeah.
What's funny though, so the village where I grew up, the local corner shop. The guy who ran it, Charlie Grams, went on TV and was complaining about the English. He was part of Settler Watch, I think, and you know he's saying they shouldn't come here. But he had this deli counter that sold olives and things like that. Obviously, it was just English people who were buying it. You know what I mean? We were all just having cans of Spam or whatever.
Braverman's tofu watch.
To be very
it
fair,
went bust.
where I'm from, up in the north, I have actually written before, leave Southerners or die. So we're still waiting for the Northern Parliament. When's that coming?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm in the wrong crowd here.
I want us
Never
to
mind.
go back to the heptarchy. 6 regions, and I want to live in Mercia. I've always fancied it. Thursday's Metro. And how's the sleep going since the arrival of the baby Leo? Sorry, not baby Leo.
It's going
Leo
great.
Jr.
Everybody says, you'll be so tired having a baby. It's actually very easy if you let a woman do all the work. But apparently there's been a study, and less than 5 hours of sleep increases the risk of chronic illnesses. So they studied the health and sleep of 8,000 UK civil servants who probably don't spend that much time awake, to be honest. And they tracked them, I think, over a couple of decades, and they asked how many hours of sleep, and they used, sleep trackers and all this sort of stuff. And they found out that those who slept 5 hours or less around the age of 50 had a 30% greater risk of multiple ailments. I don't know if that's, causality or correlation.
Well, this is
you
the
could
thing,
be getting woken up by your ailment.
It's exactly the case. I really think this in particular, this kind of, I mean, that's a very frequent phenomenon. But in this particular example, whatever it is that's going to cause you to get ill, it might be stress, bad diet, whatever, is likely to interrupt your sleep. But the way it's presented is if you can just get yourself 7 hours sleep a night, you eliminate the risks.
Yeah, stabbing pains in your chest are going to wake you up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, I mean, you live in a stressful lifestyle. Maybe it could be related to poverty, right? You might be getting woken up because you live on a main road and you can't afford double glazing. I mean, there's all kinds of reasons, and they will all interlink into
Nick,
bad
you look
life.
like you're going to die young.
He does look.
I don't get much sleep. My Fitbit told me I had 8 hours for once. I said, very, very rare. I always wonder if you can really get away with less than 7. You know, there's people like Churchill. Was he getting away with it? He was napping later, wasn't he?
He had the big and he didn't just nap in the afternoon. He put on pyjamas and went back to bed.
I like that bit.
And he spent his whole morning in the bath with his notepad on one of those kind of.
There's that bit. I think it's in Darkest Hour when he says we'll have to put it later because I nap in the afternoon. And the king says, "Is that acceptable?" He goes, well, "I don't know, but it's necessary because I stay up really late."
Absolutely. But he then worked through till 1 a.m. in the morning. Yeah, and probably worked as well. And even though he might be drunk, and also that rumour that he was drinking, he was drunk. He was not. He was just on a light champagne buzz all day. Just perfected that. I bet it doesn't include that in the report, does it?
No, it says nothing about it.
Anyone over 50 who is drinking all their champagne in one go, they're far more likely to experience health complications. Moving on to The Guardian, and the Black Death is still having an effect on the descendants of the survivors.
Yeah, speaking of health complications, this killed half of Europe. So genetic traits of Black Death survivors linked to autoimmune diseases today. So scientists found that if you have the ERAP2 variant, which is actually a selectively advantageous variant, which means that it's more associated with things like Crohn's disease, but you won't get the Black Death. So, and as they put it here, this guy from the Chicago Medical Center has said that this is, to my knowledge, the first demonstration that indeed the Black Death was an important selective pressure to the evolution of the human immune system. That's probably how, like, Bill Gates describes the COVID virus, or these pandemics he releases. They're a selective pressure. So they found this by digging up remains, by the way, of people from mass burials in 1348 and 49, and they found some had Black Death, some had survived, and and this is how they found out this information.
What's interesting with the Black Death, because it wiped out so many people, it was like 50 to 60% of the population. The generations that came after were actually taller and healthier because they had more land per person, so they had more food. It was.
And also, it had in a similar vein, had a very beneficial social effect, which is that the poor, the farm workers were able to negotiate better deals because you needed to sort of treat your people well if you were going to get your land farmed.
Sometimes moved directly into their homes because they'd all died. And coronavirus came along, and for some reason we tried to stop it.
I know.
But what's interesting is about autoimmune diseases is it's one of the biggest afflictions in the Western world. There's so many diseases, not just Crohn's disease, asthma, eczema, rheumatoid arthritis. There's so many things that are related to your immune system attacking yourself. And they think, one theory is that it's because we don't have intestinal parasites anymore. Because of the advent of sanitation and obviously medicine that can get rid of it. and they're seen as a negative thing. But actually, because we lived with them, we coexisted with them for so many millennia, they actually, you know, we need them. And they moderate, because they're a foreign protein, they sort of moderate our immune system.
Yeah.
And without them, our immune system is going haywire and is overactive.
Every healthy man is a tribe of animals. I've always said that, which is, you know, many of them are small and invisible, but he needs them in order to function. And
Have you got any that are large? Have you got a badger?
I don't know what. No, I mean internal. You know, the microbes. What have you? But there are these people. I mean, I haven't got an internal badger. I don't think they have. I know there are, you know, places in. Well, maybe it's changing even now, but like the former Yugoslavia, they said there were virtually no asthmatics.
Yeah.
Because they all had chickens and goats running around in the house, you know, and you would grow up with filth.
The bag of dirt theory. You eat a bag of dirt. Have you heard that? You're looking at me blankly. It's a theory. You eat a bag of dirt before a certain age and it makes you immune to many things. Wow. We definitely did up in the country.
A bag of dirt?
Yeah.
I'd love to, like the BCG when you get your injection.
It's a northern
Tomorrow
thing.
Tomorrow is Bag of Dirt Day, children. Remember to bring your bib.
Yeah. Well, I think the Tories are going to bring it in by proxy. It's not going to be deliberate.
You watch Shaps will scupper it. The Independent next, and if you were hoping to buy a Jeffrey Dahmer Halloween costume off eBay this year, well, you might want to think again. And I know for a fact my son is hoping to do that.
You might want to think again. You might want to think again because it's a terrible idea, but also because eBay are not going to stock them because it goes against their policy. Apparently, they have an anti-gay, cannibal, serial killer policy.
It's not because he was racist, isn't it? That's
yeah, probably. It's to do with their items closely associated with or benefit violent felons, their acts or crime scenes from the past 100 years. And people have said even the series on Netflix has been re-traumatising families. And I agree, we've gone too far with this glorifying of serial killers. I'm against them. I want to make that clear.
I did genuinely watch a couple of the Netflix series because my son, he's 15, he is a bit fascinated by it. And I wouldn't say it was glorifying it. What I would say was it was kind of just so stories. Oh, is this why he became a serial killer? Because one day he came across roadkill and he found it fascinating. I'm like, most normal kids, when they come across roadkill, go, ugh.
Yes.
You know, or just kick it into the...
He was wired to be a psycho, you think?
Yeah,
probably.
I think so. Well, it's not simple anyway.
But you see a lot of... there's the triad. I can't remember what it is.
Dark triad.
Dark triad, yeah.
Machiavellianism, narcissism and psychopathy.
And a lot of people who lack... if you've got a defect in your amygdala, then you lack empathy and it means you torture animals, and that's a precursor.
You just attacked empathy earlier in the show. You specifically... You had a pop at empathy.
Middle ground, somewhere between empathy and psychopathy, there is just normal. Empaths are a nightmare. This is from The Mirror. Might be our last story of the night. Big Bird is watching us, Leo.
Yeah, so they say in The Mirror there's bizarre conspiracy claims that birds aren't real as the protesters take over the city square. And I don't know how they can say it. This is in New York. So it's a conspiracy theory. It's not a conspiracy theory. Birds aren't real. They're all drones that contain microchips. This is why microchips became so expensive over the last 2 years.
They take them down in the winter.
People are carrying...
can't afford to keep them up all year.
Exactly. This is why we had lockdowns. They could recharge the batteries.
Yes.
No,
I do remember that theory coming out. That was a popular theory early on.
Yeah.
I don't know how long it's been going around.
I was working with my mate Tony as a labourer, and he's got a building firm, and we're out in the garden, and he points up in the sky, and I'm like, "What are you pointing at?" And he's like, "Chemtrails."
But it was actually remote-controlled birds.
Yeah. But when you look at birds, I mean, they are a bit weird, aren't they? If you get that into your head, you can imagine how you could run with it.
Yeah. They even have a sign saying pigeons are liars, which I've always said.
They are. They say coo, coo.
Yeah. Let's obviously what they've been saying at Westminster, isn't it? Yeah. That is all we have time for. Thank you to my guests, Dream Team, Nick and Leo. I've been Simon Evans. No idea who's hosting tomorrow. Not me. I'm done for the week. But it's been an absolute pleasure. I will hope you will join whoever it is in this lucky chair tomorrow night. In the meantime, thank you very much. Good night.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.